Listen up, Gotham.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Hiya, Buttons. It's me, Harley Quinn.
This is Batman.
This is Robin.
Tune into the Bat Fanatic podcast.
The Bat Fan Addict Podcast.
The Bat Fanatic Podcast.
The Bat Fanatic Podcast with Sammy Warmhands.
With Sammy Warmhands.
The Bat Fan Addict Podcast. Bat Fan Addict Podcast.
Although, Sam, you might think about changing the name.
Hey everybody, it's the Dark Knight of Rap, Sammy Warmhands, and this is the Bat Fanatic Podcast. Am I coming in hot? I feel like I'm coming in a little hot. Anyway, we are back into comic books. I got my friend Grandpa Batman and Slam Dunk Dave as well, and we are going to break down a classic that's maybe a bit of a slept-on book. It's one that I haven't read before. I want to shout out our friend the Nando Knight over at TNK Comics and Collectibles. Follow him on Shortboxed or on Instagram for claim sales, as always. But yeah, today was a fun episode. It was a pick from one of my co-hosts, which is maybe the first time? I don't know. It's a pretty rare thing because normally I have all this shit mapped out in advance. So we're throwing in a wild card here. This is Batman Year 2.
So I'm really excited. We're talking about the gun cover.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I've seen around a lot of times and been like, I don't know about that one. We'll see.
It's like just those covers in general. Like, you know, Todd worked on them, and I was just like, I need to get these. And I never read the story, like a scumbag. And now here we are. We're finally reading the story. I'm like, all right.
Well, in all fairness, yours is in a slab, so you can't really read that one.
Yeah, I can't read that one.
I picked up that 30th anniversary. This is beneath the jacket. I think this is way cooler than the jacket.
Oh, wow.
I didn't read Full Circle yet. I actually finished 5 minutes before we started. Because I read 2 issues last night, and then I read 2 today. But after reading one of them, I was like, man, I think I'm going to need a nap before the podcast. So
I read it at work, and then I came home and read it again.
Nice. I
was like, you know what? If my job's going to pay me for being the only person in the office, I'll read a fucking comic book instead of take a deuce.
Ooh, Gramps has got his Bat Fanatic lanyard on. That looks nice.
That's what we're doing? Hold on.
Bat Fanatic tie.
Well, let's do it then. This is a classic title that's new to us. It was a recommendation from Gramps. Batman Year 2, 1987. This collects Detective Comics 575 through 578. It's written by Mike W. Barr, penciled by Alan Davis and Todd McFarlane, inked by Paul Neary and Alfredo Alcala, colored by Steve Olive and Gloria Vasquez, lettered by Richard Starkings, of course, Augustin Mas, John Costanza, and Todd Klein. So a lot of creators on this for only 4 issues, but it does still feel very consistent to me. I want to mention the foreword here, written by Mike Barr, which states that Alan Davis left the project after issue 1 because DC editors changed his artwork without consent, and Todd McFarlane was brought on to finish the series.
That was something, and I read this book way back before you guys were even an inkling in your dad's eye.
When we were still shitting in our pants. How about that?
Yeah.
Well, I read this when it originally hit stands. It's always been one of my favorite 4-issue runs of Detective Comics. I'm so excited that we're doing this finally. But yeah, the artist's change, I always had a question about why that happened.
Yeah.
Because even as a young kid, I noticed, I was like, this isn't the same artwork as what was in this issue.
So when you're a kid, you're buying each issue in a row, you get the full story? Because when I was young, I just grab an issue of whatever when I happened to see one, and they weren't necessarily all there.
Well, yeah, and I mean, this was when I was like having to save my lawn mowing money and buy these at the grocery store. Because I didn't read Year 1 until later.
Oh, so this was first for you. That's cool.
Yeah, I didn't read Year 1 until actually I had the collected Frank Miller Batman Bible. I just remember seeing this on the stand and being like, ooh, who's this scary looking dude? I've never seen him before. Wow. I like this. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to wait a month to get the next one. So I got these when they first came out. And even at that young age, I was like, this is different. Why is this one different than this one? It's the same story. So I was glad that, we got this forward where Mike Barr talks about how, there was an artist change. And it makes me wonder what the edit was that pissed him off so bad.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And he had established in this forward that Mike and Alan had a long-going run on Detective that was a Batman and Robin focused series. And it was like, oh, well, these are new names to me because I think this is probably, I imagine, their more famous work. And it's my first time reading it. So I'm like, well, are those collected? I want to read that too.
And, this cover, for our readers, it shows Batman holding up a 9mm, which is basically the gun that killed his parents.
Yeah.
That's a very striking image. Like, whoa, why is Batman holding up a 9?
Exactly. I had no idea the significance of it. It was just like, oh, Batman uses a gun in that one. That's like some dumb edgelord shit? I don't get it,
Same. Like, I've seen the cover from time to time going to cons, and I'm like, man, why is Batman holding a gun? And I was always like questioning, why is he holding a gun?
Right.
Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And then so many questions were answered after reading this.
It makes me wonder if, like, maybe Alan Davis had, like, smoke coming out of the barrel, and they were like, no, we can tolerate the gun, but we can't have it where Batman's fired a gun, right? Maybe we have to take away the smoke and barrel. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, in that cover, it's just him standing there. He's got the holster on his chest. He's holding the gun pointed upward. I mean, was there blood? Was there... I don't know what it might have been, but he said it was on that cover.
He said it was on this cover, and he said it was changed without his permission and without his knowledge.
Under the jacket of the hardcover is a similar shot of Batman with the gun, and he's got the blood on him and the slashed chest emblem and stuff. I wonder if it was maybe more like that and they cleaned it up.
I don't know.
There wasn't really that much information on why that happened, which is nuts.
But what was cool about this story was that this was one of the first stories that brought the name Todd McFarlane into the comic scene. All I know, when I saw Todd McFarlane's art in this book, I was like, oh, wow, this is a Batman like I've never seen before. He was Capullo of his time.
Sure.
And you can see his influence in Capullo's work. But I was like, wow, I've never seen a Batman like this. Because I grew up reading like Norm Brayfogle and Neil Adams.
I see Brayfogle when I look at Todd's Batman with the capes and the harsh angles and the oversized exaggeration of the cape and stuff.
Brayfogle, his Batman was just like super athletic. And I mean, the big, huge cape and flowing cape, oversized cape. And then Todd is like Brayfogle having his worst nightmare. It's almost like it's like a scary like version of Brayfogle.
Precursor to Kelly Jones or something?
Yeah, man. It was like he makes Batman sometimes look, like you said, kind of like Kelly Jones, like a very demonic type of character. It's kind of like the early precursor to what he was, eventually he would draw Spawn, and so I loved it.
It's very fitting for that time period. You have like this mysterious figure who flies around from building to building, and everyone's just scared shitless of him, whether you're a criminal or a regular person.
And this is in that Batman renaissance of the mid to late 80s. Like, what surprised me is that this wasn't something that came out 10 years later or something of the publishers going, let's cash in on that year one shit,
Yeah.
This is within a year of that.
Yeah.
This is coming out. I'm like, oh, I really did not know that they were that close in release date.
Yeah, and I mean, as a young reader at the time, I eventually bought the Frank Miller Batman Bible and had year one so I could read that. And then I think within another year's time, they had Batman Year 3.
I didn't even know of that.
And they also had Legends of the Dark Knight coming out, which was like supposed to be kind of like a continuation of year one. It was like year 1.5.
Well, let's dive in now that we've set the scene. 575 opens with two scenes played simultaneously. The newly elected Commissioner Gordon is interviewed on TV about his cooperation with Batman and what he calls unfair comparisons to a past vigilante from 20 years ago called the Reaper. Gordon says that Batman would exist with or without the police, so it makes the most sense for him that they work together. Elsewhere, the interview is played on TV as the backdrop to a late-night robbery. When Gordon demonstrates the bat signal on the show, our thieves see it out the window. The last panel is an amazing shot of the guy's flashlight moving from the signal out the window to Batman's actual chest emblem standing right in front of him.
See, I was wondering if this was kind of a callback to year one, and these were the same guys that he crashed down on the catwalk.
Fire escape?
Yeah. I was like, nope, you didn't learn your lesson. Here I am, back for more.
When shots are fired, the TV goes black. It was their only source of light. One guy says Batman's no match for their guns, and he replies that if you put your faith in those, then you've lost already. Fuck yeah, dude. Great first scene. I'm already bought in.
Yeah, there was some bars, man, like throughout this whole series. There's some one-liners, and I'm like, fuck, man, like that shit still holds.
Yeah.
I just love that, they're all looking around for him, and he's like jumping down from the top. I was like, how the hell did he get all the way up there in his apartment? He's just jumping down.
If we still did the Ben Polanski trifecta, right, where it was detective, ninja, trauma, right? It's heavy in the trauma, this story. Not a lot of detective work. He seems more to be kind of playing cat and mouse with the Reaper, but like the ninja part is great because he does all kinds of like swooping from the shadows and scaring the fuck out of people.
Mm-hmm. It's so cool because in that one scene, he basically replaces the bat signal as he's jumping down on these kids, these robbers.
So good.
Love that.
A new character named Rachel Caspian meets with Dr. Leslie Tompkins, and her father shows up unexpectedly. He doesn't want to interrupt and lets them go ahead with their plans. They do, however, run into Bruce Wayne as he's authorizing, quote, double overtime on an all-night construction job for a new skyscraper. And to me, that seems very dangerous for construction work. Give these guys a break. Maybe bring in a relief crew,
You're like, yeah, make your money. You don't want to F this up, dude. Like,
seriously, that's how people
tired,
get killed.
Homie. Yeah. Like, shit.
Leslie says, I don't know who would want to live all the way up there in that penthouse. And Bruce says, well, I made it for you. Rachel clears her throat to interrupt. Finally gets introduced to Bruce. The three of them go out to discuss her charity work. And she's either talking like a comic book character or someone who just watches too much daytime TV in the 80s. Like, I'm concerned with the influence of evil in this world. And I'm like, okay, calm down, lady. After dinner, Bruce invites Rachel to the ballet, but she has no romantic interest. In fact, she's days away from taking her vows to become a nun. Cock blocked by Jesus.
Yeah, it was like challenge accepted. Yeah, he's like, oh, really? I'm the battle Jesus. I got this. I'm Batman, bro.
Now,
I would love to see that. Batman takes on the Lord.
That's a different cover.
That'll be my next sketch cover right there. Inside, Rachel asks to see her father, but he's not there. In just a few panels, we see him walk the streets, observe rampant crime, and open the secret passage to reveal the Reaper costume.
Mike Barr is not wasting time getting to the good stuff. Now, looking back at this years later, I almost kind of get a sense that he took some direct influence from Miller's DKR, where, he's walking the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Punk kids run by him. He's looking around. He's seeing how Gotham is deteriorated. He's like, you know what? I got to go out there.
It's not unlike Bruce trolling the deuce. I'm going to walk through this on a street level and see what it really is for myself. We see this guy come back to town, and he's just walking through like, ugh.
He almost seems happy about it.
Well, right. But they mention this character, and then they introduce this guy quite separately. Mm-hmm. And then before we ever see the Reaper in action, we know who he is, which is an interesting way to set that up.
Right.
Yeah, a little different. That's the 80s for you. Like when you think about Gotham, whether you think about the shitty streets of New Jersey or New York, the streets was crazy.
Shout out to Ed Koch, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the writing came from those experiences in the 80s, whether it was Newark or Trenton or New York City or whatever. Like it was the 80s. It was shitty out there. People were just hanging out, beating the shit out of people for no fucking reason. It just felt like that time period reading this.
So very quickly we see the Reaper suit up and he stops a mugging, but he does so quite violently, slitting the throat of the first guy, stabbing 2 others, and shooting the rest. He instructs their would-be victim to spread the word that the Reaper is back. Holy shit, man.
I mean, just that first scene where he's got those 2, I don't even know what those things are. Like
The scythes.
Yeah, he's just got him almost in like a full circle around his head. I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing I've ever read.
Somebody texted me today and they were like, oh man, that was the first Batman book that I ever read, or first comic book I ever read when I was like 5 years old, and it scared the shit out of me. It was so gnarly. I'm like, yeah, that's heavy, man, for the first read.
It's brutal. I mean, imagine he's already cutting people's heads off. Then he pulls out some guns from the hand scythe.
That's like an 80s style Iron Man. Like the dude had he was slashing people, then I know he was just blasting them. Like, bro.
Yeah, dude.
Yo.
He went full Punisher, man. Oh, it was Geekman Dan on Instagram. Shout out to Dan.
Yeah.
But yeah, crazy introduction for this character. At Wayne Manor, Bruce and Leslie briefly talk before the bat signal shines outside. And she cautions him, saying that someday he'll run to that light and never come home. Bruce says, someday, yes, but not tonight.
And see, that's what's interesting. I mean, this is year 2. She already knows that he's Batman.
Yeah, and she's like there. Like she just live with them at this point. It seems
that's what I was like, yo, you like mooching off of Bruce Wayne right now?
They must have established this in like their earlier detective issues because it's not really explained, but there's sort of like, oh yeah, I'm building this place for you. But then she's always around his house. So, like, there's something there for sure.
Yeah, every time he was home, she was there. And Alfred was like, hey, I'll cater to both of you.
There was that one issue where they were fucking and then they became a couple and they moved in together, but it didn't work out. And so now's that awkward period where it's like, you got to find a place.
Well,
Yeah.
I've always thought that her and Alfred, and maybe I read this somewhere, her and Alfred kind of had this unspoken romantic interest, but they never worked out.
The animated series, right? Wasn't it the episode where I think Poison Ivy has a retreat and they both go on that together? Didn't Leslie go with him? When she's like turning people into fucking plant people and some shit?
I don't know.
I think that happened.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, she's always kind of been, his substitute mother in a way.
Yeah.
It sounds like Alfred, substitute dad.
Right.
So when she asks Alfred why Bruce is so drawn to his dark cave down there, Alfred says, I believe it's the only place he can truly be himself.
It's almost like he's the teenager that just spends all his time in his room.
Furiously masturbating. Wait.
That's what I was about to say. But that's not what he's doing in the basement.
Talk about your teenage boy's dream, man. The floor-to-ceiling screen in your own personal cave, I'm telling you.
Super secured VPN. No one can.
Exactly. Batman meets Gordon at the Bat Signal and learns of the Reaper's attack. He wastes no time in beginning his search. Something I've noticed very quickly. Scenes are short. Conversations are very efficient, to the point, and we're on to the next one. Batman shows up. It's like, oh, there was an attack. Just jumps out the window. Bye.
One thing I've noticed, there's like 2 instances in this book where they don't play on the Gordon turns his head and all of a sudden Batman's gone. There's a couple times in here where he just leaves out the window. And
Yeah, he's like, yeah, well, I'm done talking with you. Peace.
I think he scares the shit out of him once or twice, though. But yeah. The first attack took place in a neighborhood that was affluent during the Reaper's original day, right? So Batman decides to watch places that have similarly gone from riches to rags, so to speak. Concealed by a trench coat, the Reaper is propositioned by a prostitute on the street, and his response is to nearly kill her. Batman swoops in to save the day, and at first, he gets the upper hand. Before long, he realizes that the Reaper was kind of studying him, and when he does retaliate, Reaper beats the fuck out of Batman before slashing and shooting him.
So this first image where you see Batman's jumped down, he's taken some punches and kicked him and hit him in the back, and then he's like standing in front of him, and Reaper's like actually a lot taller and bigger than Batman. My first thought was like, this is the perfect cosplay for Dunk. This would be what it would be like standing next to Dunk in full cosplay. I mean, he's a massive dude.
I was thinking Nightfall. I was like, dude, this reminds me of like the first encounter with Bane, you know, where dude was not ready. And you have a villain who's not just ruthless, but he's patient. And so he wants to see what you can do real quick before he's going to show you his hand.
It's typical Batman. He goes in thinking he has the upper hand. He's confident and tries to go toe to toe. And as we see a lot of times, that doesn't always work out well. That's why he's now so prepared with all his thing and has all his contingencies. But
yeah, this is year 2. So they may have written him a little bit naive and maybe a little too gung-ho for that reason.
Right.
The next morning, Alfred finds Bruce all fucked up, still in the suit, bleeding on the ground. Leslie stitches him up and quips with Bruce that he kept his promise, but just barely. Against her wishes, Bruce stands up and walks to the painting of his parents on the wall. He says that it took all of his strength and all of his skill, so maybe he needs to fight this enemy on his terms. Reaching into the wall beneath the painting, Bruce pulls out the gun that killed his parents. End of issue. Wow.
And Leslie's there in the morning, so what's that tell you?
Fucking Alfred.
Alfred, fucking
you dirty dog.
That poon.
But like, what a first issue! Like, if you just pulled this randomly out of a stack, you're digging through the bins, right? And you're like, "Oh, this cover looks cool. I never got around to this one." You read this one issue, you're like, "God damn!"
Yeah, it's quite the combo because like you have the cover of him holding a gun. Then you read it, and it's like you said, like there's no time wasted between panels. It's just, oh shit, this guy beat the shit out of me. Hey, I almost died. Oh, you guys took care of me. I need this gun now.
6 people are dead in 2 panels.
Holy shit, dude! Yeah, it's like, damn. You ever watch a soap opera? Like, all right, what you want is
this is like the opposite of a Scott Snyder slow burn. You know, it's kind of shocking.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure you read the rest of these issues.
Right.
I love the foreshadowing that, you know, we saw in the first Batman scene where he's attacking these muggers and he says, guns, if you put your faith in those, you've already lost.
Yeah.
And then
by the end of the same issue,
Reaper blasts him with some cannons. And then by the same issue, at the very end, he's like, I got to get this gun.
Dude.
I got to get this gun.
Yeah, man. It strikes me as, again, maybe it's just young, inexperienced Batman, but it's crazy that he would take a loss like that from his first encounter with this guy and treat it like he's some middle schooler who just got beat up at school, goes home and grabs his dad's gun and comes back, shoots up the playground. I'm like, what the fuck? How is that the next logical conclusion for Batman? There's like, well, the guy shot at me. I guess I'm going to shoot him.
He went up against that armor and he realized that armor that Reaper's wearing is pretty much impenetrable to his fist and whatever other weapons he has at the time.
It's not the most cunning. Like, I would expect Batman to come up with the clever solution here, and I'm not upset by it because it's so entertaining. And that first issue, you're just like, wow, really? Wow.
Yeah,
you know,
it's very shocking.
So I'm in, but at the same time, when that issue ended after the initial satisfaction kind of sunk in, I was like, wow, that was crazy. And then I was like, is he really a punk bitch like that? Like, that's not my Batman.
Yeah, again, like, as you said earlier, it's year 2. He's still learning. He's trying to figure things out. And he reacted emotionally instead of logically.
Issue 576. At dawn, the GCPD begins a heavily armed prisoner transfer for mob boss William Galanka. A sniper is spotted above. When they fire at it, it's this mechanical diversion. It's some kind of robot so that the Reaper can sneak up behind and kill Galanka by hand. He kills several cops in the process for protecting evildoers or some shit.
This is the first book that McFarlane's on.
Yes, this is the switch. And at first, because they have the same colorist and everything, even knowing it going in, I'm bought into the story. There's a lot happening, and I'm not immediately noticing because I feel like they do a good job of keeping it consistent and then gradually adding more stylistic elements.
Right. This right here with the mechanical sniper, it also shows that, okay, Reaper's got some resources too. He's got his Batman tricks too.
Yeah, where'd that fucking come from?
Yeah.
In the end, 3 died and 3 were wounded. When the mayor calls to ask about Gordon coming to breakfast, he says to shove the phone up his ass. And the middleman just tells the mayor he couldn't find Gordon instead.
Fuck me.
Oh, darn.
In the cave, Bruce practices his shooting. Target practice. Upstairs, Leslie said that she's looking for apartments and asks what Thomas would think of all this. Bruce replies, I ask myself that every day. The page ends with parallel panels as both Bruce and Caspian look at their costumes. I love the duality of some of these shots. My first critical thought is that in this issue, Bruce seems totally fine, and I'm wondering if they're going to completely ignore or downplay the severity of his injuries. Because unlike Nightfall, which took like a year for him to recover, he was decimated by the end of that first issue to the extent that he laid in the same broken position overnight. But now in issue 2, he's just fine and there's no mention of it.
And that's one thing that is a little different than like year 1, because in year 1, Miller actually kind of put dates to kind of give you that sense of, okay, this is how we're moving in time.
True.
And we don't get that with this title, but you can see that he's now fully recovered. So it has been some time. It's been a couple of weeks at least.
Rachel is greeted by her father, who brings up her dead mother for a second time.
Look at her pose.
Her pose?
She's getting out her costume just like what Bruce and the Reaper did when they were looking at their costumes.
Oh, the way she's staring at it. Yeah, because it's like she has it like opened up.
Yeah. I don't know what they call it.
Habit.
Oh,
yeah. I see pulling it out of the closet there.
What a common scene, right? Everyone's like, hey, I'm Batman. Hey, I'm the Reaper.
Everyone's got their costume.
Happy Halloween.
Here we get a flashback of the Reaper's origin, not unlike Batman's. The Caspian family is walking home one night when a burglar exits their house with a bag of shit. When confronted, the burglar shoots, wounding her father and killing her mother. This scene is beautifully drawn, reminding me that Todd McFarlane and Alfredo Alcala took over this issue. I will say the close-up of Caspian here, the father, reminded me, initially I thought maybe Bernie Wrightson, but I think it's actually Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing with Stephen Bissett and John Toddleman. But those details, the rendering of the face, all that, it just felt like some of the better 80s stuff that I really liked.
Yeah.
Rachel waits for Leslie and is surprised when Bruce arrives in her place.
He's a stage 5 clinger, bro.
Yeah.
When he did that, I was like, what the fuck?
He puts on the rich guy act, and she doesn't buy it at all. Rachel says that when her mother died, her father became withdrawn and lonely. Apropos of nothing, she pulls in close and says, perhaps it's not too late for you. She drops her uneaten ice cream cone, which is the real tragedy of this issue, and moves in for a kiss. Now, I'm on board with this story, but if this is how the women are written, I'm a little concerned.
Seems like the 80s.
Yeah, sometimes when I read older books, I gotta remind myself that, like, the character development was a little different in certain eras, right?
Yes, same. I was reading this and I was like, wait a minute. It was like 40 years ago. You gotta think about it that way. And it's like, this was too easy. I'm like, this stage 5 ass dude.
You know, I can imagine that Mike Barr probably wrote this scene out and several other scenes out a lot longer, but just due to efficiency purposes, they probably cut out several pages and they just had to make it a little bit more streamlined.
That could be that they're writing an outline and then trim it down to fit the 22-page count or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, these were like 4 22-page stories. I mean, we're getting total scenes in like a page and a half sometimes.
Yeah.
I also feel like most stories back then were 4 issues. Now we've gone like the 6 issues and the 8 issues and the 12.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of earlier things were just 4. So you have to figure out how can you get a story done in 4 issues.
And he's got a complicated story because he's got the Batman, he's got the father issue, he's got
The
Batman
romance.
and Rachel, he's got the romance, he's got a lot of going on plot points and a lot of beats that he's got to fit in 22 pages. They don't have time to mess around.
It's true, and he does hit them all, man. He really does.
Yeah.
Batman surprises Gordon at his office saying that he's working alone on the Reaper now. Soon, he says, Gordon is going to have to come after him. But do not forget, we're still on the same team. Not exactly sure what's going on at this point, but we'll see it unfold as he basically does some... I mean, we've seen him grab a gun and admit that, okay, we're going to be playing loose with my rules here, so we can expect he's going to do some shit that's not going to sit well with the cops.
Yep.
Gordon and his men are waiting on the runway when a plane arrives at the airport with another mob boss, Johnny Hamer. Predictably, the Reaper attacks. When he does, Batman is there dressed as an airport employee. This is kind of hilarious because he's in full suit with the like white jumpsuit and hat.
I love
over
that the
cowl.
hat covers the ears. Yeah.
It's so good. For some reason, when Gordon draws his gun, Batman shoots it out of his hand and tries to take the Reaper himself. Now, you just lost to this fucking dude, are going to resort to shooting him, and then when the cop who has the authority to shoot him and help you tries to do, you're like, no guns as I shoot with my gun. I have questions.
He just basically says, get out of here. You know, he's like, this is mine. I'm going to take this, and I don't want you to get hurt.
I
Because I
know.
see what he does.
But that felt extreme.
Yes, he creates some conflict. He starts tearing down that fragile bond that Batman and Gordon are still developing.
Yeah, and he's like, bitch, I just went on TV in the first issue and told everyone that I trust you and we got to work together. And now you shoot me in front of everyone?
Right.
Now I'm going to look like a bitch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fucked up.
Batman escapes with Hamer, and the Reaper blows up a fuel tank, or possibly the whole plane, I'm not exactly sure, to evade the police. There's a great shot of Gordon in the shadows, smoking his pipe. I love this fucking shot. When a cop says, I thought Batman was on our side. And Gordon snaps his pipe, saying, I thought so too.
And it was a pipe that Batman gave him as a
Right.
token of friendship.
And that's not exactly spelled out, but earlier he was talking about, you want some mints? I'm trying to quit smoking, you know. And then later, Batman gives him a little box. I don't think they showed what was in it, but we can intuit that that's what it was.
Yeah, I don't really know how the pipe really helped the whole smoking habit.
Exactly. He's
It's
like,
the 80s, dude. No one had any idea what cigarettes or nicotine did.
he's like, I'm trying to quit smoking, but these mints are terrible. He's like, you know what would really help? Smoking.
Yeah, take this, it's cheaper.
Elsewhere, a bunch of mobsters talk about their financial losses at the hands of the Reaper. One man stands back from the rest, offering it to help. He says, I need some dope or some dames, I call you. You guys need a hit, you call me. While they deliberate, Batman drops Hamer from the ceiling and offers a truce.
Dude, that image of where Batman's standing on the rafter and his cape is like,
So good.
dude, this is McFarlane at his peak where he's just drawing this cape like it's literally bat wings. So good.
So Batman says if they both want to take down the Reaper, then they'll have to work together, meaning him and the mob. And it seems odd to start the story. Again, this is all in 2 issues. Establish that he's working with the police together. This is the best way to present a unified front against crime in the city. Then push them away. And then adopt that same logic, saying, but I need help. I'm going to reach out to the mob for the help instead of the cops. He's using the same logic, but pushing away his natural allies and replacing them with them. So I'm not exactly sure about the thought process of this Batman, but again, I'm very entertained.
I think of it as Batman looking at it like, these guys have the expendable muscle that can serve as bait and pull out the Reaper. It's a win-win for me. Reaper kills some of them, takes them out, and then I take out him. It's a win-win for me.
And I got this gun. It's like, this gun solves every problem.
He's a little bit Keaton's Batman where it's like, look, if they want to kill each other, that's fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me.
I just think of it as, okay, I'll team up with him because the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right.
If he takes out some of these gang guys, that's cool. That makes my job a little easier.
There was something you said earlier about when he shot the gun out of Gordon's hand. I'm going to take care of this. It's too dangerous for you. I mean, that's presumptuous to say to your cop friend who's literally the commissioner of the whole force.
Right.
You know, but I could get behind the idea of going, well, I don't want to risk your life, but I do need an ally, so let's take these expendable motherfuckers. So, I mean, I guess there's a way you can rationalize that. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
In a final reveal, the hitman introduces himself from the shadows saying, wow, I never thought I'd be working with the Batman. Name's Joe. Joe Chill. Holy fucking shit. That is a twist. And that's the end of issue 2. So he's just set up this allegiance with the mob, and the guy who's the hitman for them, who's like, oh yeah, I'm the one who gets the shit done, steps out and it's fucking Joe Chill. Oh my God.
Like at all people, man, you have to work with. And as Gramps said, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Which is insane at this moment because your friend killed your motherfucking parents.
Yeah, I mean, you could see his already like, oh, wait, what? Holy shit. I don't know if he thought this guy wasn't around anymore or what, but he definitely was not expecting that.
I don't think he knew that Joe Chill was who he was until he saw him and he just recognized his face, you know?
Right.
And I wanted to ask you guys about this because I've always kind of had a thought about Joe Chill. I mean, it is established in DC Comics that he was the man that killed the Waynes, but...
Well, where did he come from? Did he come from this, or was he established in, like, the Silver Age?
First appears in Detective Comics 33. And was,
yeah, he's been around from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so fucking Joe Chill's been around since, what, 1940? Something like that?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I've always liked the idea that Batman didn't know who the assassin was or the mugger was. Mm-hmm. You know, I know we get some of Joker's origin story throughout the comics, but I always liked the theory that we don't really know who Joker was. But I never really liked him knowing, okay, this guy's name was Joe Chill, and he's the one that killed my parents.
I mean, I don't love his name. I wish it was like, in quotations, that's like his nickname, and then they'd put his real last name, because that just sounds made up to me. But I do like the talisman of his trauma, because the mystery can lead you in one direction, and then having an actual person can lead you in another direction. So they both offer a lot of options for storytelling, you know?
Yeah.
577 opens with the iconic 2-page cemetery spread, which is now a McFarlane statue or figure of something I've seen. There's an homage to Year One as Batman wonders to himself what his parents must think of him taking up a gun and working with their murderer. Must I become one of them, he asks. Leslie arrives at the cemetery, assuming she'd find him among the dead. she offers to pray for Bruce after he admits that he hasn't said a prayer since his parents were killed. This scene in particular feels a little unnecessary, but is some of the best artwork. So what are you going to do? There's no reason for her to just show up there.
Yeah, she just knew. Oh, she should be here anyway.
Like, Batman could be anywhere, lady. Come on.
It's nighttime. He could be just hovering over a building.
Joe Chill is waiting when Batman arrives, quote, right on time. They climb a fire escape and descend on a couple of armed guards. Batman insists on doing things his way, discouraging Joe from using his gun. For a man who doesn't like guns, he says, you sure pack a cannon. I used to carry one just like it. We see one panel of a young Bruce Wayne picking up the gun by his parents' bodies before responding, you don't say. And he's like all in black in that panel, if I remember right.
Yeah. I like that. And I think, Dunk, you mentioned it in other scenes where they're going across rooftops and jumping from building to building and going on these catwalks. It's almost like Joe Chill's a little bit more than just your average henchman guy.
Well, yeah, because he's like climbing shit. It's like, all
he's
right,
unfazed by this.
But like Batman's Batman, right? So he's like physically in shape for all this. You know, he has a cape that glides. And you have Joe Chill just trying to do similar shit. And I'm just like, wait, what the hell is going on? I'm like, is Joe Chill Robin?
I kind of wish there was a shot like in The Flash where they first get to that base in Antarctica or whatever. Or no, in Russia. Batman just like grabs him by the belt, shoots the grapnel, and fucking like pulls his ass up there. And when he lands gracefully, but just drops Barry. I wish we had something like that where
that would be funny.
He's just fucking dragging Joe's ass up the fucking grapnel up the side of the building.
It's just crazy because like it's Joe Chill. He's just a henchman.
He's part of the Bat fam now.
Technically, he's like, oh, let's sit on this fucking roof and point at shit. And then he has this massive cape surrounding him. And I'm like, what the hell am I looking at right now?
But also, while I was reading this, I was like, you know what? Batman's kind of giving away some of his little trade secrets by
That's true.
Yeah.
having this guy tag along.
To this rando.
Yeah, there's so many
Fucking
weird
murder your
choices here.
parents.
Inside, there's a bunch of Hell's Angels looking motherfuckers. One guy is literally snorting blow. And Batman's taking down everyone
to the 80s.
by
I didn't
hand.
notice that before.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of things in this that is book for kids.
Golly.
Yeah, he's snorting right off the bottom of the panel.
I mean, they even colored it.
Yep.
Crazy.
Batman's taking down everyone by hand, but Joe shoots the last guy, saying it'd be bad for his reputation if he let Batman get killed on his watch. And I don't exactly know what Batman's thinking, bringing a gun and inviting a hitman and then asking him not to shoot anyone.
Right.
He wasn't.
Finally, they get to their target, a hippie named Sunshine. He swears that all they want is peace, man, but his story falls apart when presented with his own guns and grenades. Batman leaves and Joe reports to his boss, Mr. Moritz, that he'll kill Batman once the mission is complete. But the hippies will be moving their drugs for now. It's bait for the Reaper, and soon Gordon catches wind of it as well. Bruce and Leslie meet Rachel and her father for dinner at a fancy restaurant. Mr. Caspian says that Bruce convinced her not to become a nun and that he's concerned about his romantic history. Bruce swears that not only does he love her, but he too has been, quote, hurt by life and is trying to put his past behind him. Evidently, he does make a good impression as he ends with a friendly handshake.
Stage fiver.
I like that our rivals are unknowingly meeting each other here, but I feel like this was really primed for drama, and we didn't get any tension out of this scene.
Yeah, because they technically don't know who their alter egos are. Yet, like, yo, bro, my daughter was supposed to be a nun. Now you come out of nowhere, this playboy millionaire.
Yeah.
Saying that you love her and all this nonsense. Like,
Yeah, you could have had some conflict there, or even just like, think about BVS. There's a scene where they're at the benefit that Lex is hosting, and you get Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent. They're friendly, but a little contentious, and there's just a little something there to build the tension. I would have liked a little more of that.
and then, well, he said he loved her. I was like, whoa, all right, good.
Right.
You guys just met like an issue ago.
Second date?
Yeah, like, this is why we need dates. I don't know how much, what the time period is here. 'Cause,
Right.
Like,
Well, Bruce is definitely putting on a show and lying, because he says some things that you're like, okay, either he's got some plans to put aside Batman, or he's just BSing to get in good graces with the dad, because he says, I think that may be the supreme capacity of the human soul to put pain behind it and to begin anew.
I think it's real. I mean, historically, Bruce is a romantic.
No,
you know,
he doesn't put pain behind him. He lives in that pain.
I know, but he falls for women very easily in a lot of different stories. You know, you could even point to Begins and Dark Knight as drawing on this. It's literally a Rachel character that he's willing to put away his crusade and run away with her, you know?
It depends on when he meets the person that he loves. Like, if he meets you as Bruce Wayne,
Yeah.
he's like, all right, cool, maybe I should give up being Batman. If he meets you as being Batman, he's like, all right, cool, wait, this is where I'm going to stand. Like, it's the whole Catwoman meeting Batman, or him meeting Rachel and whatever. So it's like, it depends on when he meets him. And he has, through the Batman world, he meets all these women as Bruce Wayne, and none of them stick.
Right.
And then in the day, he's still Batman. He hides under Bruce Wayne.
That's a very insightful point. I like where, they're shaking hands and she's looking at both of them. You know, she's happy because she sees the two men in her life coming to agreement. And Judson Caspian says, take care of her, Mr. Wayne. The world is a very evil place.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're the most evil asshole out there.
But like most real villains, he believes the righteousness of his cause, right?
Yeah. Same as all, right?
Yep. Rachel invites Bruce inside to visit with her and her father, but both men say they have plans. She says, I hope your evening will be more exciting than mine, over side-by-side panels revealing Batman and the Reaper.
You can see that Bruce wears the Batman suit under a tuxedo.
Yes, we get the Superman shot, the chest emblem reveal. I love it.
And he puts the cowl on before he takes off the tuxedo.
Apparently.
The bait works great, but the trap falls short. Batman and Joe stake out the hippies' drug operation, while Gordon and his team do the same. They're stacking barrels of ether for some reason, and the Reaper kills them all before anyone can intervene. Batman and Joe burst in, and shots are fired from all angles. Then the cops bust in, guns blazing as well. Batman tackles Gordon to save him and gets punched in the face for his efforts. Joe accidentally shoots a barrel of ether, and the entire place explodes. Joe is hanging off the side of the building while Batman considers letting him fall off and die. When he finally extends his hand, he thinks to himself that once this mission is over, he'll kill Joe Chill and let him know exactly why. End of the issue. This story is fucking dark, man.
Yeah, you've got Batman that's actually considering killing this dude.
This dude has not reckoned with his trauma one goddamn bit yet. My God.
Well, if I'm working with the guy who killed my fucking parents, yeah, I kind of want him dead too.
I get that, but there's a choice made right here where he decides to save him.
Yeah, because he needs him.
Because he's useful, and then decides to commit premeditated murder later. Like right here, in this moment, he's forced to make a decision. Am I going to save this guy or let gravity do its job? He's not actively killing the guy. You know, it's like, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. Like that kind of thing that you could at least kind of justify, I guess, maybe. But he's going, no, I will save you, use you, and then dump your body later. You know, like that's different, man.
Well, technically, Batman has been breaking a lot of rules being a vigilante.
He doesn't have a lot of rules in this one.
Yeah. The funniest scene here is when he does save him. Then he yanks him, and you see Batman in his massive cape and Joe Chill holding on to Batman. It kind of reminds me of any scene where Superman has to carry Batman while he's flying.
Yeah.
I was just in tears. I'm like, Joe Chill's what the hell is going on?
I like when they do that on Invincible where Mark's got to carry his friend. I forget his name. He's like, don't tell anyone about this.
This is hysterical.
All right, 578, last issue. The Reaper listens in as Joe Chill is admonished by Mr. Moritz. Joe says that he got a front row seat to Batman and the Reaper, swearing that he'll use it against them next time, now that he understands how they fight. One thing that I don't love is when different characters kind of say or do the same things, unrelated, unbeknownst to each other, because then I feel like you're just the writer. You know?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what Reaper does when he first fights Batman. Is like, yo, I'm just going to watch this dude do his thing. I'm going to study a little bit, and then I'll attack, right? And now we're getting Joe Chill saying the same thing later. So, minor thing, but I don't love that. Elsewhere, the Reaper pounces on a police informant named Sutton. He tells him when Moritz and his gang will be meeting again, but not to mention how he found out. At the manor, Bruce dresses up for a night out with Rachel. He's got a suit on, a big smile on his face. Both Leslie and Alfred are shocked by how happy he looks.
Stage fiver.
At a Chinese restaurant, Rachel opens her fortune cookie to reveal an engagement ring. Bruce puts it on her finger and proposes. Again, what, third date now? Holy shit.
My boy is bonkers.
Like, I hope you at least get a prenup, man. You have a lot to lose.
I still don't believe it.
On Friday night, the cops have surrounded Moritz's warehouse. Shockingly, Gordon makes the order to start shooting before even announcing their presence. There's armed guards outside. Instead of going, police, hands up, or whatever, he's just like, commence the operation. And they just fucking pick these guys off.
Well, it's the 80s.
Oh, right. So now the cops are shooting, the gangsters are shooting, and the Reaper shows up, starts slashing people, including Moritz himself. Nearby, Batman swoops in and finds himself under fire. The cops have a spotlight on him, so he dives feet first into it, shatters it, and then knocks them out. Stealing the SWAT truck, Batman crashes through the warehouse and runs over the Reaper just as he gets the drop on Gordon, who, I should say, narrowly escapes being run over himself.
He's okay with killing because he literally ran this dude over.
He doesn't care anymore.
With a big-ass truck. Joe Chill says, finally, partner, and opens fire on Reaper. But he dives out of the way, and the shots hit the wrecked SWAT truck, causing another explosion. Mr. Moritz is found mortally wounded, telling Gordon that Batman only used him, and trails off before he can finish. Now, he's dressed very similarly to Joe, and I misunderstood this the first time I read it, because they both have short hair that's light-colored, and depending on the panel, it might be a little blonde, it might be a little gray, and they're both wearing the same color clothes. So I thought fucking Joe got killed in the explosion.
And this is where he tells them that Batman's only working with the mob to get the Reaper, and that kind of reestablishes a little bit of trust because Gordon figures out, oh, that's what he was trying to tell me all along. I just didn't see it.
Right, but I'm also like, wouldn't his real reaction be, wait, Batman was working with the mob? Like,
yeah.
Gordon thinks back to what Batman said before and decides to shine the bat signal once again. Bruce, however, is with Rachel. He tells her that there's something he has to do, and she won't like it. But after that, he'll be hers forever. Rachel says that she's seen the real Bruce, not the fake persona that he puts on, and that inside, she knows he's a good person. She'll be waiting when he's done. Joe awakens to Batman holding a gun to his head. Moritz is dead, as is the Reaper. Joe says he was supposed to betray Batman after all this was over, but now that his boss is gone, let's shake hands and move on. But Batman says not just yet. There's something I have to show you. Outside of a theater in Crime Alley, Batman tells a story of Joe robbing a woman for her pearls, killing her and her husband in the process. Joe asks, how could you even know that? And then Bruce unmasks himself.
Crazy.
This was kind of a shock to me.
Crazy.
Bruce pulls out the gun that Joe used to kill his parents and asks where he wants to be shot. Before he can make an irreversible mistake, however, Joe gets his head blown off, but by the Reaper.
This whole scene right here, this is like evil, sinister Batman. And he even portrays him the way he poses and the way his cape is shaped. And I love it.
Well, it's like any villain, right? It's always like, let me tell you the story of how I became a villain. And this is who I really am. And then it's like, you're doing all this extra talking. Just get to the point.
Well,
Right.
this is kind of the opposite of that, where the hero is telling the villain how he became the hero. And it's like, wait, what? Holy shit.
It's also like his villain error, I guess, because he was ready to shoot him.
Right. You know, it reminds me a little bit of the end of Three Jokers. Like, I wonder if this was any of the inspiration for Jeff Johns coming up with that sort of full circle moment, you know?
Right.
Could be. This is who I really am. And it's like, oh, shit, it's you. And it's like, no, bullet to the head.
Another thing about naive Batman here, I'm not sure why he's so easily declared dead, the Reaper, without doing any investigation after that explosion. We just find him later. He's like, hey, Rachel, I got to go shoot a guy in the head. And she's like, don't worry about it. It's all good. And then he goes and he's about to shoot the guy in the head. And he's like, oh, by the way, that guy's dead. He died in the explosion. And he's like, oh, okay. And we just take that at face value. And then, of course, the Reaper shows up. And I'm like, well, yeah, no shit, dude. Like, why would...
Yeah, it could just be the distraction from Joe Chill, right? I guess I'd make that as an excuse.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
I mean, he already ran the dude over, and then he blew up the vehicle that had ran the dude over. So,
Yeah, but the armor and the... I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah,
Also, fucking Gordon and all those guys should be dead, honestly.
Yeah.
After that
'Cause they blew up twice.
How'd Joe get out, too?
Yeah.
The Reaper says, now that I know your secret, I'll meet you at that monument you've built to your father, right? And this is a very clumsy set change. Like, I don't know why they
Yes.
don't fight there. It's like, nah, after school, under the willow tree, 3
exactly.
o'clock.
Yeah. Meet you at the parking lot.
And they don't chase him or anything. They just appear there.
That panel where he's like shooting behind an unmasked Batman through the cape. I've never understood that panel. It's almost like I guess he was saying, you know what, we'll finish this here. Meet me there. And
And he just starts shooting so he can fly away. You know,
I
like-
don't know. I don't
like-
know. I don't understand that one panel, but
I don't
he
either.
basically tells Batman, you know what, I know your secret.
You know, I didn't think of this earlier, but the first time Batman tries to throw some gas canisters when they're fighting, Reaper makes some sort of comment. It's like Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. That's now the second or third time I've thought of something from this that connected to those films because, you know, he's like, I was born in the dark, molded by it, all that shit, right? Or they're like, oh, theatricality and deception, you know, right? The first time Batman tries to smoke bombs on Reaper, he has a similar reaction like, oh, yeah? You're going to show me how it's done, new guy?
Yeah, I'm sure Nolan. Obviously, they lifted a lot from year one and
Long Halloween.
Returns, but you know they could have used some of this as source material as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. At the skyscraper construction site, Batman knocks down the Reaper and takes one of his scythes. And this is where we get the panel that became the cover for issue 4. And he's got the gun and the scythe on him. Batman does, which is crazy. They have a short fight, but Reaper falls, losing his mask and dangling from the side. Batman sees that it's Caspian, who basically says, I never thought you were a killer, but now you're a great replacement for my daughter, who somehow needs a murderer in her life at all times. I don't know. But he lets go willingly and presumably dies in the fall.
Now, kind of circling back, part of me thinks that Caspian knew that he was probably mortally wounded at the explosion in the previous battle scene and knew, okay, this is where I want to end it and how I want it to end. And that's why this fight scene goes pretty much in Batman's favor from the get-go. I mean,
Yeah. See, I wish that some of these little dots we've connected were explored a little bit on the page.
right.
You know? Because
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of very good stuff here, but then there's some stuff you got to be like, well, hang on a second.
By now, Batman kind of understands. I mean, this is what, their third fight? He knows his tactics. You know, you see him jumping out of the way. You see him countering with the kick. He even gets
Right.
his little hand scythe and the gun at the same time.
That's true. He learns
And
fast.
He picks it up. He shoots the one scythe out of his hand, and then he hits him with a cut across the chin.
Yeah, knocks off the helmet.
It's on point.
Yeah, he's really got him off balance, and part of me thinks
He's like,
that,
you killed the guy. I was going to kill the guy. What the fuck,
Bruce
man?
has learned how to fight him, but also I think Reaper's probably also still a little wounded from the last explosion battle that they had at the warehouse. So
Yeah,
that, and he knows who Bruce is.
yeah,
And part of that is like, all right, cool. The person that I'm fighting is going to take my place, and that person's going to be with my daughter for the rest of their life.
yeah.
I'm okay with this.
Which is, again, an odd way to fucking... like, all right. You're willing to shoot some guy in the head? You're a great fit for my daughter. I can die happy
Well,
now.
no, I think he sees him as a replacement for his cause. He thinks that Bruce or Batman now, he's willing to kill.
Yeah.
He's where I was when I first started this Reaper persona and mission, and he's going to continue to clean up Gotham the way that he did it.
Yeah, I really think that this is an inspiration for Nolan and Goyer and all those guys, because that was what Roz wanted him to be in Begins, and he just fought it tooth and nail. It was like, no, I'm not going to be the executioner. And this one, it's like it doesn't happen by conscious choice. It more happens by circumstance. Like he's exploring that. He's considering going down that road. He's ready to do it. But I like that they take the choice away from him. I'd be very curious to read, because, this is the deluxe edition, and there's that extra story a couple years later, Full Circle, I think it's called. I'm curious to read that now after we're done, because I want to know what are the lessons learned from this experience for Bruce Wayne. Bruce rushes to comfort Rachel, who's now swarmed by paparazzi. She's shocked by the news that her dad was the Reaper, and he kind of says, none of that matters now, honey. We can start a new life together. I'm like, whoa. You're just going to sweep that under the rug?
Page fiver.
Yeah, and she says no. She has to atone for her father's sins and pulls out the nun's habit from the closet. With no argument from Bruce, again, could have been fleshed out for a little more emotional resonance here. He says, I understand, and they part ways. In the final scene, Bruce presents Leslie with the Dr. Thomas Wayne Medical Center and asks Alfred to wait up for Leslie. The last page is Batman springing into action, saying, I can always find my own way in the dark. Wow, what a fun first read.
I'm glad you guys liked it.
Yeah, great recommendation. You made a comment before about, because we're doing all these One Bad Day titles and we're doing the Superman films, we haven't done a lot of these Batman-focused stories. I'm going to just take a chance. Let's do that one that Gramps was talking about. Let's get a good Batman story on here, and boy, did it deliver.
Yeah, this is a heavy hitter. Ever since reading this, the Reaper was always one of my top favorite villains, even though he was just really in this one story for the longest time.
Right.
And then Mike Barr teamed up with Alan Davis to do Full Circle.
Oh, so Alan came back.
Yes, he came back to do Full Circle.
Cool.
I think DC realized people really like this character, and I want to think it was in New 52. Basically, Reaper's kind of become this generational character where, obviously it's not the same guy in Full Circle, and it's not the same guy in these other stories. People have taken on the persona of the Reaper.
Yeah, I'm curious how that is going to play out.
But every time they do, it's just like a more vicious version.
I don't know how you could, man. That first issue, Reaper's first scene is fucking gnarly, dude.
I even found, this is from 2011. It's called Retroactive 80s Batman, and it's another Reaper story.
Oh,
sick.
Who wrote it?
I'll give you one guess.
Mike Barr?
Mike Barr.
Oh. I do think the bones of this story heavily influenced Mask of the Phantasm. We haven't talked about this yet, but not just the Reaper's character design with the cloak and the skull type mask and the scythe on one hand, but changing Rachel to be a more compelling love interest with Andrea and making her dad not the villain, but the victim of the villain. flipping it so that she's the villain. Like, I think there's no fucking way this didn't inspire that movie.
Oh, I think you're 100% correct on that.
But it
Spot
also
on.
makes me want to see an adaptation. You know, DC's been doing more of these more straight adaptations from time to time. And with just a little bit more of that script fleshed out, you know, to add some weight in a couple of those emotional scenes, those personal scenes. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
dude, if they gave this book the emotional resonance of Mask of the Phantasm, I mean, fuck, dude.
They would have, I mean, I don't know if they would or could, because I mean, this story is just so
Pretty violent.
gory and violent and
Yeah.
brutal, but I would love to see it. I would love to see a live action version of Reaper. Holy crap. Can you imagine
Yeah.
what that would be like?
Be like Logan.
It'd be insane. Insane.
So, what do you guys got for pros?
Wow, where do you begin? Action packed.
Yeah.
Art was great. Great storytelling. You know, you have your action, you have your drama, you have your origins, you have there's so much. There's so many pros. And again, what we just said, like, we'd love to see this in live action. The fact that we said that alone means that the storytelling and everything you need for a live action film for us to enjoy is in this 4-issue series.
Yeah.
Those are the pros. I could go on. Like,
We get so much with so few pages. You know,
Yeah.
it's very impressive.
it's great.
Gramps, you got anything that you want to underscore or highlight?
You know, after rereading it again after so many years, I just really appreciate the efficiency of the storytelling, because from the get-go, Batman's taking on some thugs. We get introduced to the villain within, I think, the first 5 pages. And like you said, we're introduced to who the villain actually is. That's hardly ever the case.
Yeah, it's not a mystery at all. And that's a really cool way to present it.
And he gets us invested in the villain because we see him from the personal side as a father of this young woman. And he kind of makes us sympathize a little bit with him because he's also been a victim of violence, and he lost his wife and was injured himself.
Yeah, you could definitely play that up more in his personal side because he makes a couple references to it. But if we did see him not being such a straight father figure character, if they had one or two more scenes where you got him dealing with that loss in maybe his day-to-day life in some other way, now that we've seen what happened, you could definitely empathize with that.
I really like the interaction between Gordon and Batman. They're still in this stage where they're fleshing out what's our agreement, how do we trust each other? Are we friends? Are we allies? Are we co-workers? What are we doing here?
Right.
And
so we've got this like Year One and Dark Knight Returns. Like there's two different versions of that relationship with the police, whether it's adversarial or whether they're allies.
Right.
And then this one is very much a gray area or a back and forth, still trying to figure that out.
I've always wanted to have a Reaper Year One title.
Mm-hmm.
He operated 20 years prior to Batman.
Yeah,
and
that's true. There's a lot to say there.
there's a lot of story there that would be so cool if someone could develop that.
Yes, please.
I've always wanted to see like a Reaper Year One that really gave us some more. I mean, I know it's a little sadistic because...
Dude, DC Black Label, man. Come on.
I know. We shouldn't praise this guy that's a psychopathic serial killer, but my gosh, dude, there's so much to explore here.
And in a pre-Batman, pre-Gordon Gotham, what does that look like?
Yes.
And why does he go away? There's a lot to explore. That I know a couple people, at least from DC, that have listened to the show. If you guys are hearing this, I think there's so much that you could do here.
I firmly believe that you put your wishes out to the universe, things happen.
Beautiful, naked, big-titted women just don't fall out of the sky, you know?
I just want to underscore for my pros, the pacing, like you guys said, is very efficient. It's so engaging. Sometimes we're reading a story arc that's, if it's not self-contained and it's over several issues, it can feel like I'm doing my homework sometimes. And this was just a fucking breeze. I kept telling my wife, I'm like, oh man, I know I have to stop reading. I have to put in my bookmark so I can write down the last few pages of what happened. But I don't want to stop reading. It's so much fun. I do also want to comment on changing the artists mid-series and not feeling any kind of lag whatsoever. Like, it starts very consistent. You know, obviously it evolves a bit by the end, but like, very impressed that they were able to make this feel like a continuous story. Because usually it's so obvious when they change.
I feel like it helped evolve the story in a way, because as the story continues, McFarlane's artwork gets a little edgier and a little edgier and a little edgier. And I think there's actually issue 4. He's actually doing his own inks. You know, he's the only credited artist.
I see. Okay.
And when he's allowed to do his own inks, he's like, yes, I'm going for it. And especially, you know, that scene where Batman takes Joe Chill out to Crime Alley. It's almost like we're seeing Vampire Batman in a way.
Yeah, the full silhouette shot.
Yeah, the full silhouette, the one where he's like standing in the background, but he's kind of leaning a little bit while Joe Chill is talking. I mean, this is the darkest Batman I had ever read at that point.
Can I tell you something? This might surprise you. This is the first time I've read a Todd McFarlane book. As far as I'm aware, as an adult anyway, this is the first McFarlane that I've actually read.
There's a lot of great positive points about this. It's why it's always been one of my favorite books. My favorite rogue is Mr. Freeze, but I think number 2 is probably Reaper.
Well, then you'll be really happy to know what our next One Bad Day review is going to be. All right, so cons. I will lead here because we just praised the efficiency and the pacing, but it is too efficient at times. We've established this. There's a little bit of corny comic dialogue, you know, like the death in the family stuff.
Fear the Reaper.
You know, that was another similarity with Phantasm, is like your angel of death awaits, and then this one has the time to fear the Reaper or whatever the fuck.
Time to pay the fiddler, whore!
So yeah, a little bit of dated comic dialogue, a little too efficient at times, and then Batman's decisions here are forgivable for how early it is, and it's very interesting to read this story because of those choices being so different. I don't know if this belongs in the con, but there's a lot of times where I'm like, Batman wouldn't do that, you know, so you gotta, again, justify like, okay, young Batman might do this. I don't know.
Young Batman that doesn't have much experience with all the ramifications of some of these decisions.
Yeah.
All that happens if you decide to work with the mob or, you know, not trust Gordon, like what you said earlier, is like, you know, this is the one guy that you should be relying on to help you in this situation.
Yes. Or you could almost believe, like, let's say that he does go through with killing Joe and Reaper doesn't shoot him instead. You could use that decision to inform guilt he carries forever.
Right.
So when he's training every other member of the Bat family, it's like, look, I've been down that fucking road. It solves nothing. Do not do that to yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Well, this story, Mike Barr even addressed it, you know, in his foreword. He likes to play with the toys of Batman.
Right.
When Frank Miller wrote Year One, he had to just basically tear him down to nothing and world build. Mike Barr didn't have to world build as much.
Yeah.
But he still liked to have some of the toys to play with. He already had, you know, established himself a little bit. One thing that, if we're going for some cons, yes, I mean, there are some plot points that probably could have been fleshed out a little bit. As I read this story, I thought, this probably could have happened over a period of maybe 3 weeks. It didn't feel like a full year, you know?
Well, I didn't really think of it in terms of it being a year, just that it happens during the second year.
Maybe so. You're right.
Like you said, Miller gave us the map for the first one.
Right.
And we don't really, I mean, he even talked about in the foreword that it's not really essential to him to follow that blueprint of year one.
Right.
And that they were going to do their own thing with it. So, I mean, I can appreciate that it's not necessarily beholden to those rules.
Exactly. And I think that they did a really good job. I view this story as basically Bruce going down a path that if he had continued, he would have ended up like the Reaper. And this was the moral of the story, saying, if you had chose to kill Joe Chill, if you had chose to do this, you would be Judson Caspian's replacement. You would be Darth Vader. You would be the dark side.
I wish that there was a little bit of an epilogue, too, that just let that sink in a minute, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's a good observation of...
Where Alfred and Leslie could have told him, it's good that you didn't let this overcome you, because you can sometimes let the monster overwhelm you and then you become the monster.
Yeah. And again, everything that we're saying here is always with love, and it's also me reading this for the first time with modern eyes. And so I'm judging this after reading decades worth of other Batman stories, right? So all of these things are just fun to talk about, our constructive criticism. Dave, do you have any cons that you wanted to throw out before we go to rating?
No, it's pretty much the same thing. You know, you have to look back, and it's like, I jokingly say, like, oh, it's the 80s.
Right.
You know, and it is the 80s. You know, sometimes they get campy, they get repetitive. You know, 4 issues to cover so much. That's a con. But again, that's similar to what you just mentioned. That's a con because we have, you know, the 4 decades, Jesus Christ, of Batman reading that we've done for so long. When you compare to that, we could pinpoint certain things that we find as cons.
When we talked about Riddler year one, right, that was 6 issues, I think. And we were saying, you know, maybe that could have been done in 5.
Yeah.
And then this one, we're like, man, this was 4, but maybe it could have been done in 5.
Yeah. Compared to modern comic books, like sometimes you got things that get a little too wordy.
Yeah.
And they stretch them out to like 8 or 12 books. And it's like, man, it could work against you. We could be so happy that we get that much detail and there's no reading between the lines.
Right.
Or, you know, you get something shorter where you could read, have the flexibility of reading between the lines. But then it's like, oh, it's not enough detail. So it all depends on like what you're looking for. But I think, again, 4 issues in the 80s, they did a really good job. But there's a lot of reading between the lines and things that are missing, which is why something like this, we'll love to see live action because there's so much more you could do with it.
And why it's fun to talk about, you know, because just like the movie Joker or something like that, where they don't really answer all the questions, it's like, oh, well, this is the parking lot conversation I want to have after the theater, you know what I'm saying? And so this book gives us a lot of that.
Yeah. So again, when it comes to cons, it's a dated thing.
Can you imagine if some of this dated dialogue was stretched out like those weird Tom King things that we've complained about or something? You know, then it would be frustrating, right? But the fact that that dated dialogue is so condensed into these little one-page scenes, it's like, we're already on to the next scene, and it's action-packed, and shit's blowing up.
Yeah. And it's like, you flip the page, next story. Oh, my God.
Right.
Now he's Batman. Now he's Bruce Wayne kissing someone. Oh, he's getting engaged. What the F is going on, guys?
Oh, my God, he's kissing Joe Chill. All right, so what do you guys say for the rating? Gramps, this is your story. I want you to lead, please.
Well, I'm so happy that you guys read it for the first time. It's always rare when you can introduce something new to Batman fans and readers. So I'm really happy. I always want to experience or see others experience something for the first time. So this is really cool for me.
And I could tell you on past seasons, there were times where I brought in a favorite of mine that didn't quite land the way I hoped. And so whenever it did land, I was like, yes, you know, that's the best feeling that we're all excited about it.
Out of 5 Polanskis, I give this a strong 4.5 because I feel like if this story came out next week, it would land.
Yes.
The points are all there. The action is there. The whole plot is there. I really like this story a lot.
Yeah, quality. 4.5 for Gramps.
4.5. Yep.
All right, Dave, what do you got?
Gramps, I'm right there with you, man. 4.5 sounds like a perfect score for this. It was fun to read. It was easy. You don't want to do anything else between reads. You want to just continue going. 90% an A. That's where I'm at.
Cool. Well, to me, it's a solid 4 out of 5. I'll definitely read it again. I'm definitely happy to own this 30th anniversary hardcover and keep that on my shelf. It's one that as soon as I finished it, I immediately was like, they got to make an absolute edition. Like I'm in on this story. I don't know how it will, like Gramps was like, well, I don't know how it'll rank with my other ones on the shelf or whatever. I'm not even thinking about that because this is new to me and I had fun with it. Yeah, I think 4 out of 5 is good for me. So, cool.
Definitely read Batman Year 2 if you haven't. It's a lot of fun. But there's also a sequel Mike Barr did with Alan Davis called Full Circle. As I mentioned earlier, there was this from 2011. There's this retroactive 80s Batman #1 where him and Robin go up against the Reaper again. And I think there's also another appearance that he makes during DC Rebirth or whatever that was.
Okay.
They've used him several times, and hopefully there'll be some more because I really like this character.
Yeah, and I'm excited to read the rest of that because this deluxe edition does have Full Circle in the back. We just wanted to do the original self-contained story arc. So check that out. Let us know what you guys think, and fuck off. All right, that is our show. Thank you guys so much for listening. Appreciate it if you made it to the end. And to those of you who keep sharing and putting the word out there, it means a lot to me as well. I want to let you know I did a guest spot on my friend's podcast. If you go to YouTube and look up the Sig Slayers channel, I was hanging out with my friend Mike and my friend Mark, and we were talking about Batman Volume 3. So everything from Rebirth, Tom King, James Tynion, Chip Zdarsky, Joshua Williamson, all of that up until now. And reflecting on it before Hush 2 comes out, and then we do a reboot at #1. So check that out on the Sig Slayers channel. Also, we will be back not only with One Bad Day, but we're going to do a bonus episode introducing a new co-host and talk about some of the other books that we've been reading. So stay tuned.